Greetings and welcome to the Spiritual Awareness Journey program, a virtual spiritual talk platform where the practical applications of all things spiritual in our daily living is shared and discussed by experienced speakers from all walks of life, as well as our special guests who are realized souls called Mahatmas. This program is brought to you by the Manav Dharam YouTube channel. I am your host, Darshana Dodia, and we are delighted to welcome you from all around the world to spend your precious time with us as we present to you our last episode of this first season with the topic Grace. With every breath we take, we are indeed blessed with grace, itself an ever-present divine virtue, a perpetual shower of light, love, joy, wellness, fortitude and peace, by which we each are sustained, whether we are aware of it or not. And the magnitude of such a merciful gift is mostly only experienced after giving up on things or on life, as we then open ourselves to receive this ever-present divine energy that heals us and makes us feel whole again. And our speakers today, Mr. Sachin Gupta and Dr. Rita Sharma, are honoured to share with us their experiences and understanding of this topic, as well as our special guest speaker, Mahatma Vyomabaiji, who will elaborate on the spiritual aspect of this simple but profound divine virtue sustaining all of us with the breath of life. As humans, we spiritual beings have the ability to commune with our own original spiritual essence within, the source of grace itself, that constantly bestows us with such blessings, which makes us feel protected, looked after and tended, as it helps us to achieve our highest state of consciousness, filling us with love and the light that we, in truth, are. We hope our speakers will inspire you to seek this highest state of awareness by inquiring about the spiritual knowledge. And becoming conscious of the spiritual being residing within us, we can forge a true connection with our own spirit, our soul, and start our own practical spiritual awareness journey. And as this one race, the human race, we, the spiritual beings, by grace, can raise our vibration to the state of oneness, attaining our true goal, a spiritual, enlightened world where peace, joy, contentment, and bliss will reign. So today, I'm delighted to announce our youngest speaker of this spiritual awareness journey program so far, Mr. Sachin Gupta, who has joined us for our last episode of Season 1 to share his insight, understanding, and experience of what grace means to him. Sachin Gupta is a 16-year-old student who lives in Amsterdam in the Netherlands and currently studying at high school. So without further delay, here is Mr. Sachin Gupta.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming today to listen to my satsang about the topic of grace. Now, when we actually talk about grace, what grace actually is it is the spontaneous gift from God that comes in the forms of love, clemency, and peace. Now, when I refer to God in this satsang, what I'm really referring to is a universal higher energy that created this universe and creation. With the G in God, meaning the generator, or in other words, the creator, the one that manifests all and everything. And secondly, the O in God, standing for the operator, or in other words, the preserver, sustaining our manifestation and creation. And lastly, the D in the word God, defining the destroyer, or in other words, the transformer, the power to transform, change, or destroy anything in this creation and manifestation. And in addition, when I refer to the human soul, what I'm really implying is the energy our life is sustained by that keeps us alive. In a sense, our consciousness that is driving our material body. So now that that is established, to receive the grace of God is by far one of the most prominent manifestations of the result of our commitment to and the purest gift we can be gifted from by God. However, when just talking about and simply believing in God, you always remain far away from God. And you're always keeping yourself far away from God. If you only believe in this higher energy, you can never acquire the divine gift of God's grace. I too could believe in you, the listener, but I will never it will never mean anything because I could believe in you or your existence. But for me to actually believe in you, I would never even have to know who you are and a purpose or meaning to me in my life and my experience in this life. And likewise, for you to believe in me, you would never even have to know who I am or get to know who I am. This is no different when someone says that they quote unquote believe in God, because by simply believing in God, you can never receive the grace of God. Because by simply believing, you're always far away. Another reason why we always tend to stay so far away from the grace and glory of God is always asking for something, always needing something, always aiming to seek something out of God, only when we ourselves are in a troubled or disadvantaged situation in our lives. We've always had that one friend in our lives, colleague, friend, family, even family, teachers, anybody who never realizes to bother who we are, but always seem to want something out of us for their own benefit and personal gain. Yet we usually realize who these people are in our social circle and end up never want anything to do with them. Yet we're constantly praying to and troubling God, where we're always asking for something in our lives, such as fulfilling specific desires. Think of praying as in talking to God, but in contrast, meditation is listening to God and receiving grace of God. We were naturally given 2 ears and 1 mouth for the specific function to listen twice as much as we speak. Hence, the importance of meditation when wanting to receive the grace of God. It is also important to understand the sheer amount of odds that were beaten for us to have ever entered this world in the first place, and to even be alive and well today. We are lucky to be able to breathe, with each and every breath being a blessing on its own, and to be a part of this complex and precise nature that we were born into. Even scientists, so far, can only modify already living beings, but have to date never been able to create life. And it shows that wherever science ends, spirituality begins. Because science only studies the creation, what has already been created by the grace of God, but does not actually create anything new. It only studies the creation. It also shows that there is proof that there is a hidden energy behind the reason why we're alive and why we're here in this life in the first place. That our soul is an actual life energy driving us, and that our body is simply the vehicle. Because once our soul departs from our body, from our old and decayed body when we die, our body will decompose and decay back into nature like it was never there. What is inside is what matters. That is why we need to make sure to develop our soul and inner energy and a relationship with God and consciousness in order to be able to be ready to actually receive the grace of God. But how do we receive the grace of God in the first place? How do we make ourselves worthy of the grace of God? In old Indian scriptures, in the Gita specifically, a concept called the gunas are explained to be energetic forces that weave together to form the universe and everything in it. The three primary gunas are sattva, rajas, and tamas. Tamas is the quality of imbalance, disorder, chaos, and etc. It is a law of vibrational way of life, which makes you not only unfit for the grace of God, but also leads to bad karma and energy in your life. Rajas being the dormant quality, which not only keeps you unfit of God, but also leads to a more balanced karma. And also, in the first place, keeps you far away from God. It reflects either bad or good karma in your life, or either bad or good. And mostly reflects egoistic, self-centeredness, and dynamic qualities in your life. Sattva being the saint's way of life, where the energies we emit through our lifestyle reflect balance, harmony, peace, clarity, positivity, and etc. The law of vibration states that our own life energy outputs, positive or negative, attract like experiences of the similar vibration into our lives. In a sense, the energy that we output into the universe throughout our way of life will attract similar experiences in our life. Hence, if we want to be able to receive the grace of God, we must change our lifestyle and daily habits in order to be worthy of the grace of God, in order to be able to attract the grace of God into our lives. And once we actually do attract the grace of God into our lives, will we really understand the sweetness and importance of grace. If we do not change our lifestyle to make ourselves worthy of the grace of God, then how could we expect to receive the grace of God in the first place? Not only do we have to be able to match the pure and precise vibration and frequency of the grace to attract it, but we also need to make changes in our life to actually be able to be worthy and be able to deserve it. Things like practicing gratitude, meditation, being in nature, and etc. are all high vibrational activities and healthy habits to incorporate in our lives and help us become better people and help us to actually be able to deserve the grace. So thank you for patiently listening to my message about the topic of grace, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Sachin Gupta, for a really inspiring message there. So to me, I just wanted to point out a few things that hit home for me, and I'm sure many of you have taken something away. I liked how you mentioned about praying is talking to God, but meditation is listening, and we've been given 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we should be listening more than talking. So I really like that point. And just being ready, the importance of being ready to and worthy to receive that grace of God. And in order to do that, how we need to incorporate those healthy habits in our lives. So thank you for that insightful message there. Thank you once again, Sachin Gupta. Now, to present our second speaker today, directly from New Delhi in India, we have Dr. Rita Sharma. Dr. Rita Sharma is an anthropologist and cell biologist by training, and in her professional life, she facilitates research and innovation partnerships and has a keen interest in science policy. She considers herself to be a lifelong learner of spirituality and endeavors to apply the learnings in her life to discover herself more and more. Here now, our next speaker, Dr. Rita Sharma.
Thanks so much, Darshana, for the kind introduction, and many thanks to the Spiritual Awareness Journey team for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on the topic of grace today. Grace can mean different things to different people depending on their religions or belief systems. Some of you in the audience might be quite knowledgeable about it from an intellectual or theological perspective. So just to clarify that I am neither. And we'll be talking about grace from a very personal viewpoint, what it means to me from my upbringing and experiences in life. Just to provide you with a bit of context, I come from a Hindu family, not very religious in terms of following rituals or visiting temples regularly, but with a very firm belief in spirituality and humanitarian values. This belief system aligns with Manav Dharam, which literally means the religion of mankind, that we're all children of one God and connected in spirit. And in Hinduism, the word grace is described as kripa, which could mean blessings or boons given by God or the mercy shown by Him. And in this concept, that divine being, God, is referred to as the Kripala, one whose kripa we seek, one who's kind and showers His grace upon us. Grace is also said to hold the golden key towards self-realization. An ancient Hindu sage by the name of Vashisht wrote in his classical work, Yog Vashishta, that grace or kripa is the only way to transcend the bondage of lifetimes of karma, where karma means the cycle of cause and effect of our actions, be it past, present, or future. So it means that grace is the only way to help us go beyond the effects of our actions. So that's the kind of a background with which I have approached grace in my life. To me, it's a kind of a divine intervention. And my experiences on grace have particularly led me to believe that whether one's an atheist or a believer of a particular religion or sect, each one of us is touched by it. Some of you may not agree to it, but I would just request you all to take a moment to think about one particular instance in your life that defies all logical explanations. At this point, I'm not asking you to give it a reason that it was due to the grace of God or some unsolved scientific mystery, but just to acknowledge that certain things happen that we don't have an answer to. And to prompt your thinking on this, and on a lighter note, all those young people in the audience from India and maybe other countries who have been promoted to the next class over the last year without actually taking an exam. If that's not grace, I really don't know what is. But just that thought, if you just keep that thought with you for the moment, and I'll come back to it shortly. In today's world, we try to explain everything scientifically. Our belief in ourselves is so strong, and there's nothing wrong in believing in ourselves, but sometimes it gets skewed or in a way gets inflated by our ego. And we think that our strength, our intelligence, and our knowledge is supreme. But in reality, it is quite limited. Even scientists tell us that in the different fields of science, we've not even scratched the surface of understanding what's happening around us. In string theory, they talk about as many as 10 different dimensions, which are far more in number than the 4 that we are aware of: length, breadth, height, and time. And now people are also talking about the 5th one, which is attributed to the collective consciousness. Since we can't see so many dimensions with our eyes or perceive them with our sense organs, it's difficult for us to imagine them. But we still give them the benefit of doubt because scientists are talking about them. But at the same time, if saints or sages talk about other dimensions, or there are concepts like grace or spirituality that scientists are not researching on with as much vigor as the physical sciences, then why do we close the doors of belief on them? Why not give them the benefit of doubt as well? The grace of God, I truly believe, is in every speck of this universe. That divine intervention is ever ready to help us, to nudge us forward in our spiritual journeys. You might ask that if that's the case, then why can't we all see it? Let's take a metaphor to understand this better. And some of you may have come across this earlier. I request you all to look around yourselves, whichever room you're sitting in, and try to find all the blue things that you can see. If you just look around the room, try to see the blue things that you can see and try to memorize them. Have you found any? Okay, now stop, look back at me and listen to the instructions very carefully. Now try to recall all the green things you saw. Did you see any green things? No looking again. Okay, why is that? Because you were looking at the blue things, so missing out on the green ones. You put a filter in front of your eyes to see only blue things, but it doesn't mean that the green ones are not present. And that's exactly how it's easy to miss the grace of God if we're not aware of Him. If we are full of ourselves, meaning if we are full of, all the things that we know of, our ideas, our concepts of whom we are, that we are not letting the divine grace to enter our lives. But when we make space for it, it becomes a predominant feature for us. And through that, we remain protected and directly in touch with that divine being, because that's how He communicates with us. I have personally experienced the grace of God many times in my life. And each time it's either helped me in coping with the situation I was in at that point, or nudging me forward in my spiritual journey. Once I was stuck. I couldn't think of any logical explanation for the situation I found myself in. I tried to face the circumstances head on. I reached out to people for help, tried all the things I could think of. And then out of sheer frustration, I surrendered or opened myself, more like emptied myself, and let myself receive from the supreme power. Because there just didn't seem anything else that I could do. And then out of the blue, one day, the reason for all the chaos in my life was placed right before me. And I started to understand. I really believe that to be the grace of God, when divine intervention played its hand and made me see what was not visible to me earlier. When we let grace to enter our lives, it can be a really powerful force that can transform our lives. But like I said, we have to create space for it. The basic idea of spirituality itself is, in fact, to create space for the divinity to manifest or become apparent in our life. You'll note that I'm not referring to it as enter our lives. I'm saying manifest, because divinity already exists within each one of us. All the practices and techniques that we follow in spirituality are for this sole reason, something that's already there, but we're blind to it because we're just busy or, looking at other things or running after the materialistic things of this life. Just to explain that, when a glass is brimming with water, it's difficult to put more water in it. We all know that. It's so difficult. But if it's even slightly empty, we can put in it a bit of lemon juice. A few drops does its magic, right? And it gives us such a refreshing, tangy flavor. Not only that, it's alkalizing and leads to many health benefits as well. So that's the kind of space we need to create for the grace to enter our lives. So the question arises, where do we actually create that space? Is it a physical place? No, it's a space in our hearts and our minds, which are normally filled with our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts, our ideas, our philosophies, and even prejudices. And then the next question arises, how do we actually create that space? And the simple, straightforward answer to that is by having unwavering faith in God or that supreme power. I asked you earlier to hold on to the thought of acknowledging that fact, that there are certain things that we don't, have the answer to. And when we've acknowledged that there are things that we don't currently understand and that there is a power or a force or a reason due to which they are taking place, we are automatically putting our faith in something higher than ourselves. And that to me is really belief. And believing or having faith in something higher than ourselves and being aware of our belief is a prerequisite for identifying instances of grace in our lives. It's the window from where grace flows into our lives. Whether we achieve this through meditation, through prayers, through introspection or self-inquiry, the route that you choose depends on your temperament or your inclination. But what's really essential and quite encouraging for us is that sincere steps taken on the spiritual path lead us to our spiritual progress that we may not be even aware of. And that's something I'm talking from from my own experience, and I'll tell you an instance to elaborate this further. Once I was traveling for work, and on one of the evenings, I was due to meet colleagues for dinner. And when I reached the restaurant, I couldn't find them. So I called them up and asked them where they were. And their response was that they hadn't finished shopping. And I'll not go there at all. So I decided I'm going to go back to the hotel, grab some sandwiches on the way back, and was walking towards my hotel. And as I walked down the street, a stranger came from behind me and said that he had to run to catch up with me as I was walking really fast. After which he said something really very strange. He said that as he passed me, because he was going the other way, and as he passed me, he saw a white light emanating from me. Well, you can imagine my reaction to that. I quickly dismissed it as some weirdo and started to walk even faster. He came after me and repeated what he said earlier, insisting quite seriously, and told me that he was an accountant but practiced Reiki. And then he told me a bit more about that. Anyway, so after that 1 or 2 minute exchange, we went our own ways. But as I approached my hotel, it dawned upon me what had just happened. And to explain that, I would have to tell you what I had done a couple of days earlier. It's not very dramatic. I had posed a question to God, quite seriously. I had been practicing meditation for a while, but doubt had set in as to whether what I was doing was correct or not, whether I was actually practicing meditation in the right way or not. And in my mind, I asked the Almighty to give me a sign or proof that I'm on the right path, expecting something out of the ordinary spiritual experience. So during this work trip, at every given opportunity, I nipped up to my hotel room to sit in meditation because I wanted my answer. And God graced me with a reply, but not in my meditation as I'd imagined, but in the form of this total stranger. Through this incident, God made me realize that when we meditate, even if we think that we're not having a life-changing, profound experience, there are changes happening around us, within us, that we're not aware of or in tune with. They are so subtle but profound and contribute to enhancing our spiritual journey. They also help us to stay on our path, on the right path. So that's another example of His loving grace in my life. When we believe that there is a higher power than ourselves, then we have direct access to it, and untold possibilities just open up to us. We begin to notice the works of the Supreme Power. We become okay with ourselves and our lives, and there is acceptance. And with that acceptance comes peace and happiness. An Indian saint by the name of Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans, he used to say that the winds of God's grace are always blowing. It is for us to raise our sails, meaning that we have to make some effort to receive the grace of God. We make effort in everything we do in life, whether be it for the family, for our careers, or even just preparing food. So why not make a little effort for ourselves? So dear listeners, grace is truly a gift of the divine. I sincerely hope that you would consider this proposition and let grace and the divine essence enter your lives to attain higher spiritual goals. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll hand back to Darshana. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rita Sharma. That was very inspiring, and I'm sure everyone here has taken something away from that. I really thank you for sharing your personal experiences on the topic of grace and how it's manifested in your life. I really like the analogy that you gave about the glass of water, and even just leaving that little bit of space in the water and being able to add that lemon juice will transform the water. And in the same way, we see how important it is for us to leave that space and make that space for grace to manifest and transform our lives. So thank you so much to Dr. Rita Sharma for that inspiring presentation. And now the Spiritual Awareness Journey is honored to present to you our third speaker of the day, our special guest, Mahatma Vyomabaiji. Mahatma Vyomabaiji is a realized soul from Haridwar in India. Mahatma Vyomabaiji is a disciple of Satguru Sri Satpalji Maharaj. She has been spreading the message of spirituality and peace to humanity for the last 20 years in service of Guru Maharajji through the Manav Dharam Seva Samiti, a spiritual organization. Mahatma Vyomabaiji, through her spiritual discourses, has been spreading the spiritual awakening message in various parts of India, including Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Nepal, Bihar, South India, and Delhi. And she has come here today to share with us her deep understanding of grace. Let's receive her insightful and enlightened words of wisdom with an open heart and mind. Here now, Mahatma Vyomabaiji.
Thank you, Darshana, for your introduction. And my heartiest greetings to everyone here. We have all gathered here on this platform of Spiritual Awareness Journey to listen to spiritual discourses on various topics. And this is the last episode of the season. And today's topic is grace. And we have just heard the speakers, different speakers, Sachin and Rita. So they express their beautiful thoughts on the subject. So I would also like to express my views. And what is grace? So first of all, we have to see the definition of the word grace. The definition as given in a dictionary is like, it goes like this. It is the unmerited assistance given to human beings for their regeneration and sanctification. So, grace of God always showers on people, those who deserve it or those who are eligible for it. And there is another aspect of God. When we say God, it is the universal energy, that omnipresent energy, which is omniscient and omnipotent. So grace is a very important aspect. And so the another aspect of that energy is the authority to punish the sinners. So when we say he is omnipotent, so he is very powerful. And when we say he is omniscient, so he knows everyone and everything, what is happening around, what is happening in our mind, what is happening in the universe. So he His grace, when we say His grace, so He showers His grace when we most need it. When we are stuck in situation, when we are stuck into some difficulties, then from an unknown source, we get this help. And we say that by God's grace, I have come out of a difficult situation. By God's grace, I have got this job. By God's grace, my business is working well. So we relate the grace of God with only materialistic gains or materialistic wishes to fulfill our materialistic wishes. But we must not limit that limitless power of God to fulfill our materialistic desires only. The real purpose of grace, when God graces us and helps us in difficult times, it is just to make us know that He exists. Otherwise, He is hidden behind the wheels of Maya. So, in a time of our need, He manifests in various forms to help us, just to make us know that He exists, and we must believe Him, and we must remember Him, and we must pray for Him. So, what is the real purpose of grace? The real purpose of grace is not to give us lots and lots of money, to give us reputation in society, to give us fame, name. But the real purpose of grace is that we go ahead in life and evolve spiritually, that we believe in Him, have faith, and that we pursue our passions without fear of unknown. And to the another aspect and the another purpose of the grace is to motivate us and inspire us in the right way. So we have heard the thoughts from Dr. Rita and Sachin also. So what we can understand from this speech, that God, the power of God is so vast, and we must not limit that power to use it for such personal small desires. So we can use that power, and He can do anything for us. Like in Hindi, it is said that प्रबल प्रेम के पाले पढ़कर प्रभु को नियम बदलते देखा, अपना नाम टले टल जाए, भक्त का मानन टलते देखा. So when God helps us, when His devotee worships Him and prays to Him, then He will help him, even if he have to change the universe upside down, even if he can break the rules of the universe, He helps His devotees. So there is one, I would like to tell a story, a real life story from the life of Dr. Ahmed. The story goes like this. Dr. Ahmed is a famous cancer specialist of America. And he was going for a conference in another city. It was an important conference, and he was to get an award in that conference. So he was very eager to go and attend that conference. So he boarded a flight. And After he boarded the flight, after 2 hours, suddenly the flight made an emergency landing because of some technical problem. So when he landed at the airport, he immediately went to the enquiry counter to ask about another plane. At the counter, he was told that there is no another plane for 10 hours. So worried about the conference, Dr. Ahmed, somebody suggested that he should rent a car and go by himself. So Dr. Ahmed rented a car and drive himself to the conference city. The distance was 4 hours to the city. So in between, all of a sudden, after an hour or so, a sudden weather changed suddenly, and there was a storm and a heavy rainfall started. So he was not able to see the road ahead and he took the wrong turn. And then he was lost. After traveling for a long time in a deserted road, he was tired and hungry and exhausted. And looking for some sign of civilization, he looked around and found a tattered house nearby. So he went there and knocked on the door. A lady opened the door and she asked him what he wants. Then he said if he can use her telephone. She told him that she have no telephone. She is a poor lady and she have no telephone, but he can come in and wait till the weather improves. So Dr. Ahmad went in and sat on the couch. She offered him some tea and bread to eat. And then after some time, she asked him if he would like to join for prayers. Then Dr. Ahmad told her that he is not interested in prayers. He believes in hard work and not prayers. So he declined. The lady went in another room and started her prayers. And while sipping his tea, Dr. Ahmad watched the lady praying, and she was weeping, she was crying. And there was a cradle near her, a crib near her, where a small baby was lying in that crib. She was crying while she was praying. So Dr. Ahmad was puzzled that why she is crying. After her prayers were over, he asked the lady why she is crying and what are her problems and what exactly she wants from God. So the lady replied that she is praying for this small baby. He is her son, and he is suffering from a rare type of cancer. And somebody told her that only Dr. Khan can cure such type of cancer. So I was praying and I have no money to consult Dr. Ahmad because he is a very big doctor in America and I have no money to pay his fees. So that's why I was praying. Listening to her reply, Dr. Ahmad was stunned and speechless. He could not say a word, and he started collecting the sequence of events that happened today, that the sudden landing of the plane and changing of weather, storm, and he losing his way and coming to this tattered house just to reach the lady. So such such a plan of the Almighty God. Now he started believing in God. Oh my God, if this is the reason why I am here, because by God's grace, this lady got Dr. Ahmed at her doorsteps. So he thought in his mind that God can do anything. If such is the way, then I must also be a devotee of God. And so he thought that he can, behind the scenes, God can move mountains, events, situations, weather. He can manipulate everything just to bring out the best for the needy and the humble. So when we say who is eligible for the grace of God, then we must say that those people who are humble and lead their life based on principles, morals, and ethics are eligible to receive the grace of God. Just like this poor lady who received grace because of her simple attitude, because she was humble and innocent, so she received the grace of God. And those people who are cunning and vicious and unfaithful, sinful and godless, what happens to such people? Then the scriptures and saints and sages and holy books say that such people fall from grace. And when they fall from grace, their life becomes hell. Even if they have lots of material wealth, they have lots of materialistic possessions, but their life become hell because they find no peace of mind. Their mind is restless. They have no contentment. And without the virtues like contentment and peace of mind, their life becomes very hard and restless and like hell. So that's why we must try to walk on the path of spirituality. We must adopt a spiritual lifestyle, a spiritual mindset, so that we can have all the good virtues. We can lead a life with morals and ethics. So to raise our status high in eyes of God, so that he can grace us, he can love us, he can save us, and our soul slowly will go towards God, and one day we will merge with him. And for that we need some method to connect with God, and that method is meditation. So we must meditate regularly and connect ourselves with that divine power which is within us, which is all pervading, which is everywhere, which is all powerful, and which has the power to turn the universe upside down for us. So I would like to say that we must, just like Jesus says in Bible, humble yourself in the sight of God and he will lift you up. So we all must be humbly pray and believe and have faith and serve him and serve society and serve needy and be compassionate with the needy. Then we surely will be eligible to receive his grace. So thanks for listening to me and having me here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Mahatma Yomabaiji for that inspiring message. I'm sure everyone here has taken something away from that, but I just want to particularly highlight that inspiring story and how the woman in that story was clearly had the attributes and the virtues to indeed receive the grace of God, and God did move heaven and earth to get somebody to help her in her time of need. So it's such an inspiring story, and I hope that we can all take that away with us and use that in our spiritual awareness journey also. So thank you very much to Mahatma Vyomabaiji for your time and presence here today. So I wish to thank each and every one of you for your presence on our Spiritual Talk platform today. We hope that you've enjoyed our last episode of this season's program. So we are delighted that we have a very special program planned for you on the 11th of September, which will be the only event in the month of September, and season 2 will commence on October the 2nd. So we urge you all to stay connected and look out for the invitation for our next virtual event on Saturday, the 11th of September, with our very special honour guest. It is truly one not to be missed. Feel free to drop us a note with your comments, and if you have any questions or requests, please email us at spiritualawarenessjourney@gmail.com, and the email address should be in the chat box. We hope this season has brought you more insight into spirituality and spiritual living, and we hope that it's been both informative and uplifting for all of you. A very big thank you to our speakers, and thank you once again for honouring us with your presence in our first season. Thank you also to our sponsor, Manav Dharam YouTube channel. We look forward to seeing you all at our next Spiritual Awareness Journey program with our very special guest speaker on September 11th. And I'm your host, Darshana Dodia. From all of us here on the Spiritual Awareness Journey, wishing you a healthy and joyous journey.